Welcome back, students. Hope everybody is doing good. Okay, yeah. As everyone watched my previous videos on this model question papers, we have finished part A and part B. So now in this video, we will take up part C. So I hope everybody is aware of part C, where you have to answer the questions from inorganic chemistry. So part C is purely inorganic chemistry and all the questions will be for 3 marks. Yes? Yeah, let us start now. Let us go ahead with part C. Okay? We finished part A for 1 mark wherein we solved 10 questions. We finished part B also for 2 marks wherein we solved 8 questions, and now in this video we will take part C. As I said, it is purely from inorganic chemistry. Okay, again there will be 8 questions. You have to answer only 5 questions and each question carries 3 marks. Okay, please write a brief answer, a very precise answer, so that you should not lose even a single mark. Just follow what I write and just look at the way I write the answers according to the scheme of evaluation. Is that okay? Yes, guys. Yeah, now I'm starting with the first question of part C. Yes, so we know in part C we'll have to answer the questions from P block, D and F block, and coordination compounds. So here is the 19th question. Okay, the question says like this. What is the question? Yeah, discuss the principle involved in the manufacture of ammonia by Haber's process along with the chemical equation. So for Haber's process, you have to write the chemical equation and also discuss the principle involved in the manufacture of ammonia. It's a 3 marks question. Okay? Yes, guys. So Haber's process. First, let us write the reaction. Haber's process. Very simple reaction. Okay, you don't have to buy out this. What is that? Nitrogen gas reacts with 3 moles of hydrogen gas to form ammonia gas, isn't it? Yeah. Okay, this is the reaction, and enthalpy of formation of this reaction, if you know, you write it. If you don't know, then that's okay, no problem. Okay, you don't have to take okay, unnecessary trouble. Okay, don't risk yourself by writing something wrong. Okay, if you know the enthalpy of this reaction, write it, because nowhere it has been asked. You just have to write the reaction. Nitrogen reacts with 1 mole of nitrogen reacts with 3 moles of hydrogen to form 2 moles of ammonia. Now, which is the principle involved, okay, for the manufacture of ammonia by Haber's process? Yeah, we know it is Le Chatelier's principle, isn't it? So now, according to okay, Le Chatelier's principle, according to Le Chatelier's principle, the favorable conditions are, the favorable conditions are 3 favorable conditions. One is high pressure of 200 atmospheres, right? Very high pressure of 200 atmospheres, a moderate temperature of 700 Kelvin, moderate temperature of 700 Kelvin, and then a catalyst. Which is a catalyst? Iron oxide as catalyst. Iron oxide as catalyst in the presence of, okay, in the presence of, hope you can see down, presence of Okay, aluminium oxide or potassium oxide, right? Okay, if you write all these three things accurately the way I have written, you'll be getting 3 marks. Okay, preparation of ammonia by Haber's process. What is the pressure that is required? 200 atmospheres, a moderate temperature of 700 Kelvin, iron oxide as catalyst in the presence of aluminium oxide or potassium oxide. That's so good. Yeah, simple, very simple. Next question. Give any 3 reasons for the anomalous behavior of oxygen. 3 reasons for the anomalous reasons. They have just asked you the reasons for anomalous behavior of oxygen. Students, trust me, the same answer holds good if they ask you to write the reasons for anomalous behavior. If they ask you to write the reasons for the anomalous behavior of nitrogen or oxygen or fluorine, if they ask you any of these 3, the same answer can be written. Okay, I hope you know. What are those reasons due to which oxygen exhibits anomalous behavior? 3 reasons, very simple. One is small size. Small size, this is one of the best reason. And the other one is high ionization enthalpy. High ionization enthalpy. Small size, high ionization enthalpy, high electron gain enthalpy, high electron gain enthalpy, electron gain enthalpy, enthalpy. This 3 was sufficient, but let me add one more. Non-availability of d orbitals. Non-availability of d orbitals. D orbitals. So out of 4 reasons, you can pick any of the 3 to show that okay, oxygen exhibits anomalous behavior. Come on, small size, high ionization enthalpy, high electron gain enthalpy, and non-availability of d orbitals. Correct? Simple. Yeah. Next question. What is, okay, 21st question, it contains 2 sub questions. Okay, yeah. What is aqua regia? This is for 1 mark. Okay, what is aqua regia? What is aqua regia? Yes, yeah, it is a mixture of concentrated nitric acid, isn't it? Concentrated nitric acid and concentrated HCl. Okay, in 1:3 ratio. 1:3 ratio is called as what? Aqua regia, isn't it? Aqua regia. Is that correct? Yeah. Yes. The mixture of concentrated nitric acid and concentrated HCl in 1:3 ratio is called as aqua regia. Very simple. 1 mark question. Yeah. Next one. Write the structure of chlorous acid. What is this chlorous acid? They are nothing but oxo acids of chlorine. Oxo, he is talking about oxo acids of chlorine. Yes, oxo acids of chlorine. Students, which are the oxo acids of chlorine? We have chlorous acid, then we have chloric acid. Sorry, first comes, just remember in this way. Okay, I'll tell you. Okay. Yes, remember this way. First one is hypochlorous acid. Hypochlorous acid. Then chlorous acid. Then chloric acid. And the fourth one is perchloric acid. These are the oxo acids of chlorine. Okay, hypochlorous acid, HOCl. See the structure of hypochlorous, okay, chlorous acid, HOClO. Chloric acid, HOClO2. Perchloric acid, HOClO3. Understood? Just look at the structure of all the oxo acids of chlorine. Yes. So hypochlorous acid, very simple, HOCl. Chlorous acid, HOClO. Chloric acid, HOCl double bond O double bond O. Perchloric acid, HOCl double bond O double bond O and double bond O. That's it. Very simple. Now the question is, write the structure of chlorous acid. Which structure are you supposed to write? This structure, isn't it? Write the structure of chlorous acid. It's for 2 marks. Is it not easy? Chlorous acid. Come on, name the different oxo acids of chlorine. One is hypochlorous acid, HOClO. Chlorous acid, HOCl. Okay, hypochlorous acid is HOCl. Chlorous acid is HOClO. Chloric acid is HOClO2. Perchloric acid is HOClO3. HOCl double bond O, HOCl double bond O, double bond O, HOCl double bond O, double bond O, double bond O. These are the different oxo acids of chlorine. Yes, simple. Next question. Yeah, here we go. Well, this has 3 sub questions. This, okay. 21st question has 3 sub questions. Look at here. That means to say this is also for 1 mark. This is also for 1 mark. Each question is carrying 1 mark here. Now we have to complete the equation. The equation is like this. Bromine, that is Br2, is treated with excess of fluorine. Excess of fluorine. Yes. Okay, you have to complete the reaction. What is the answer? Take 2 as common. Bromine pentafluoride. That's it. This is the answer. Bromine pentafluoride. 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 Okay. Yes. Yes. This is the correct answer now. If they just ask you like this, Br2 plus 3F2, what would be the answer? The answer is bromine trifluoride. That's it. Bromine trifluoride. Okay. But the answer for our question is bromine pentafluoride. 1 mark question. 1 mark. Over. Yes. Next. 22nd question. This also has, I think, 2 sub questions, right? Yeah. 22nd question has 2 sub questions. One question is like this. Many copper 1 compounds are unstable. Many copper 1 compounds are unstable. Okay. Unstable in aqueous solution and undergo disproportionation reaction. What is that? Why? Okay. Yes. 1 minute. Many copper 1 compounds are unstable in aqueous solution, okay, and undergo disproportionation reaction. Why? Okay. Yes, you have to explain. Many copper 1 compounds are unstable in aqueous solution and undergo disproportionation. Let me quote the answer for this question. Yes, copper 1 compounds. Look at here. See the answer. Copper 1 compounds. Yeah, copper 1 compounds. Copper 1 means cuprous, isn't it? Copper 1 compounds are unstable in aqueous solution. In aqueous solution and undergo disproportionation, isn't it? Undergo disproportionation. And undergo disproportionation, just like this. Look at here. Okay, it undergoes disproportionation. 2Cu plus. I hope you know what is disproportionation. it is both oxidized, sorry, okay, yes, it is both oxidized as well as reduced. Okay, if the same species is both oxidized as well as reduced, we call it as disproportionation reaction, right? Cu plus is oxidized to Cu2 plus and also it is reduced to Cu. Okay, see in the aqueous solution, copper 1 is highly unstable, therefore it is disproportionate to give Cu2 plus and Cu. Why it disproportionate? Because Cu2 plus is more stable. Okay, are you all able to understand? Why it disproportionate? Because Cu2 plus is more stable, okay, than, okay, Cu plus, because it is due to okay, high negative hydration enthalpy, high negative hydration enthalpy, okay, this compensates for the second, okay, ionization enthalpy of okay, Cu. Okay, look at here. See just try to understand this. The question is, copper 1 compounds are more unstable in the aqueous solution, therefore they will undergo disproportionation. It is oxidized as well as reduced. Cu plus is oxidized to Cu2 plus, reduced to Cu. Why it gets disproportionation in aqueous solution? Because upon disproportionation it forms a more stable species Cu2 plus. Why Cu2 plus is more stable? Because of high negative hydration enthalpy. Since it has high negative hydration enthalpy, Cu2 plus is more stable than Cu plus, hence Cu plus will undergo disproportionation reaction. Okay, very simple. Please understand this. Okay, yeah, let us take up the sub question. What are interstitial compounds? Hope you know this. What are interstitial compounds? Okay, yeah, we know, yes, the non-stoichiometric compounds. The non-stoichiometric compounds, correct? The non-stoichiometric compounds formed when small atoms like hydrogen, carbon, nitrogen are trapped in the interstitial sites of transition metals having larger voids, large voids are called as interstitial compounds, isn't it? They are called as interstitial compounds, correct? The non-stoichiometric compounds formed when small atoms like hydrogen, carbon, nitrogen are trapped in the interstitial sites of transition metals having larger voids. They are called as interstitial compounds. Let us quote some examples. They are non-stoichiometric, you should remember. Let us quote some examples. The examples are vanadium hydride. See the formula, V8 0.56. Then titanium hydride, look at the formula, okay, TiH 1.7. Okay, they are the non-stoichiometric compounds formed when small atoms like hydrogen, carbon, nitrogen are trapped in the interstitial sites of transition metals. See, okay, please understand what is this. Okay, see, if this is the interstitial sites of transition metals. If this is the interstitial sites of the transition metals, okay, yes, So in these voids, small atoms like hydrogen or carbon, they are trapped. When the small atoms like hydrogen or carbon and nitrogen are trapped in these interstitial sites of transition metals, it forms a wide variety of new type of compounds, and these new types of compounds are called as interstitial compounds. They are totally non-stoichiometric, and the best example is vanadium hydride VH 0.56, titanium hydride TiH 1.7. Okay, yes. So that completes this question. 22nd question, correct? Yeah. Next, 23rd question. Such a simple question. Yes. Write the general shell electronic, write the general valence shell electronic configuration of d block elements. General valence shell electronic configuration of d block elements. Valence shell electronic configuration of d block elements. Yeah, so it goes like this. We know the general valence shell electronic configuration is, okay, n s, okay, how much, 1 to 2, n minus 1 d 1 to 10, right? That's it, very simple. This is the general valency shell electronic configuration of d block elements. N minus 1d 1 to 10, ns 1 to 2. In particular, if they ask you to write the general valency configuration of 3d series elements, 3d series, okay, 3d series, it's going to be 3d 1 to 10, 4s 1 to 2. For 4d series, okay, yeah, it's going to be 4d 1 to 10, 5s 1 to 2. Like that for 5d series, if they ask you, yes, 5d 1 to 10, okay, 6s 1 to 2. Okay, this is how it goes. But the general valence is not general valence shell electronic configuration of d block elements is n minus 1d 1 to 10, ns 1 to 2. Simple, 1 mark question. Okay, well, sub question for this. D block elements act as good catalyst. Give any 2 reasons. There are actually 2 reasons mentioned in your NCERT textbook. Let us write both the reasons. D block elements act as good catalyst. Give any 2 reasons. What's the first reason? Yes, they act as catalyst because, okay, because of their variable oxidation state. Yes, they exhibit variable oxidation state. Due to this variable oxidation state, they can form intermediates. That is why they act as good catalyst. Okay, then the other one is they provide large surface area. They provide large surface area. Large surface area for adsorption. They provide large surface area for adsorption. Yes. Okay. These are the 2 reasons. One is they exhibit variable oxidation state, one reason. The second reason is they provide large surface area for adsorption. So because of these 2 reasons, D block elements act as very good catalyst. Act as very good catalyst. They act as very good catalysts. Understood? Yes, that's it. Yeah. Next one. Yeah, see, look at here, such a simple question, so simple. Yeah, this is how the questions will be even in your board exams. This is how the questions are going to be. Well, this question carries 2 marks. Okay, that is why they have asked you 2 reasons. So this carries only 1 mark. Okay, yeah, so many questions. See how fast we can answer. If you know the concepts, if you know the answers, you can answer it very soon. So simple, you know, it takes in only 1 sentence or 2 sentences maximum. Okay, now next question. Give the three postulates of Werner's theory of coordination compounds. You have to write three postulates, okay, of Werner's theory of coordination compounds. Okay, any three postulates. There are so many 4 to 5 postulates, out of which you have to pick only 3. Let me write all the 4 to 5 postulates. So it is your duty, you can pick any 3. Okay, yeah. Excuse me. Give any 3 postulates of Werner's theory. See the postulates. Let me write all the postulates of Werner's theory. Postulates. See this. First one. Yeah. In a coordination compound, okay, every central metal atom or ion has 2 valencies called as primary valency and secondary valency. This is one postulate. So central metal atom will have 2 types of valencies. Which are those 2 types of valencies? One is called as primary valency and the other one is secondary valency. Next postulate. Primary valencies, sorry, I'm writing the spelling wrong, kindly excuse me. Yes, primary valencies are satisfied by negative ions and are equal to their oxidation state. Okay. Next postulate, primary valencies are satisfied by what? Primary valencies are satisfied by negative ions and are equal to their oxidation state. Secondary valencies are satisfied by negative ions or neutral molecules and are equal to the coordination number, right? Coordination number of central metal atom. Coordination number of central metal atom. Coordination number of central metal atom. These are the 3 postulates. There is one more postulate. I'll just write it here. Please excuse me. Primary valencies are directional. Primary valencies are non-directional. I'm sorry, non-directional. Yes. Okay. Here itself, secondary valencies are directional. Secondary valencies are directional. So there are 4 postulates. He has asked you to write only 3 postulates. So every central atom has 2 types of valencies called as primary valency and secondary valencies. Primary valencies are satisfied by negative ions and are equal to the oxidation state of the central metal atom. Secondary valencies are satisfied by negative ions or neutral molecules and are equal to the coordination number of central metal atom. The 4th one is primary valencies are non-directional. Secondary valencies are directional. Please remember these postulates. You can write any of those 3. Okay? Yes. Fine. That completes 24th question. 25th one, very important. Very, very, very important, I'll tell you. There are 4 complexes, as you know. So out of 4 complexes, one complex is a guaranteed question for 3 marks. It is completely for 3 marks. You have to explain based on VBT, valency bond theory. You have to explain the formation of tetracyanonickelate 2. Okay. What is this complex? What is the name of this complex? Tetracyanonickelate 2. Tetracyanonickelate 2. Yes. Shall we explain the formation of this complex? Yeah. Let us go ahead. Consider this complex. NiCN4 2 minus. First calculate the oxidation state of nickel here. So let me calculate the oxidation state of nickel in this complex. Ni, okay, CN4 2 minus. Yes, X. Cyanide is a monodentate ligand and its oxidation state is -1. It is equal to -2. You will get X equal to +2. So nickel is in +2 oxidation state. Correct? Yeah. Okay. So please remember this. Nickel is in +2 oxidation state. Let us start now. Okay. Yeah. So now nickel, atomic number of nickel is 28. What's its electronic configuration? Okay, argon core 3d8 4s2, right? Okay, when nickel is in +2 oxidation state, you are supposed to remove 2 electrons, that is argon core 3d8 4s0. Now write the orbital configuration. If you write the orbital configuration, 3d 4s and 4p. Yes, 3d8 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8. Is it correct? Yes. Now coming on to ligand, cyanide is a strong field ligand, right? Is a strong field ligand. So since cyanide is a strong field ligand, okay, electrons will pair. Electrons will pair. So now what will be the orbital electronic configuration? Yes, let me write it here. What will be the electronic configuration now? Orbital electronic configuration. Now the electrons will pair up. Yes, 3d. These 2 electrons will pair. Okay, because cyanide is a strong field ligand. So therefore we will get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 4s and 4p. Yes, just observe. There are 4 ligands. Each ligands will donate 2 pair of each ligand will donate a pair of electrons. That means 4 cyanide ligands will donate 8 electrons. So we should have enough of orbitals to accommodate 8 electrons that has been donated by the ligands, right? Okay. Hence, what will be the hybridization state? So now, okay, you have to accommodate 8 electrons. Look at here, XX 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 7, 8, right? So X is the electrons that is donated by the ligand. So what type of hybridization is it? DsP2 hybridization. This completes the story. DsP2 hybridization. Now everything is done. Just look here. Okay. So what is the hybridization? Hybridization. Yes. Hybridization is DsP2. DsP2 hybridization. So if it is DsP2 hybridization, what will be the geometry of the molecule? Yeah, it is going to be square planar. Square planar. Correct? Since there are no unpaired electrons, the molecule is diamagnetic, isn't it? Diamagnetic. The molecule is going to be diamagnetic. That's exactly. Since inner d orbital is used for hybridization, okay, it is a low spin complex. It is a low spin complex. This is going to be a low spin complex. Correct? So if you write this, all these different steps, follow one by one. See, first you'll write this, then you'll write this, then this, okay, then this point, okay, then coming over here, okay, and then you'll write all this different points. Okay, if you write all these different points, you'll get complete how many marks? 3 marks. Got it? That's it. Very simple. Okay, so nickel tetracyanonickelate 2 is, it involves, in this complex, nickel involves dsp2 hybridization. Therefore, the complex is a square planar complex. Since there are no unpaired electrons, the molecule is purely diamagnetic. And since inner d orbital is used for hybridization, it is a low spin complex. Correct? Yes, that's it. Now, I think the last question. Yes, yeah, this is the last question from part C. Very simple question. Last question from part C, that is from inorganic chemistry. This question is from inorganic chemistry. Yeah. Okay, what is it? Structure of, decacarbonyl dimanganese 2. Structure of decacarbonyl dimanganese 2. Yes, dimanganese 2. So this is the structure. Look at here. Manganese. Okay, so this manganese should have 10 carbonyl ligands. This, okay, manganese should have 10 carbonyl ligands. This is how you'll write it. Look at here. Carbonyl. Okay, carbonyl. It is an organometallic complex, isn't it? Okay, it's an organometallic complex. Just observe the diagram or observe the structure. This is one. Next, carbonyl. Okay, and then carbonyl. Okay, both the carbonyl atom, both the manganese should have 5 carbonyl ligands. This is how it has to be. Yes. Okay. Yes, writing this has 1 mark. Okay, understood? Decacarbonyl dimanganese 0. Of course, since it is an organometallic compound, in any organometallic compounds, the central metal atom, the oxidation state of the central metal atom is going to be 0. Please learn, please practice this structure. Decacarbonyl dimanganese 0. Okay? Yes. So the last sub question is this. What are homoleptic complexes? Give an example. Yes. So what are homoleptic? Homo means same. Yeah. If the central metal atom, or ion, okay, is surrounded by same ligands, okay, then the complexes are called as, are called as homoleptic complexes. What are they called as? They are called as homoleptic complexes. Okay. If the central atom or ion is surrounded by same ligands, then the complexes are called as homoleptic complexes. Very simple examples. Look at here. For example, K4 Fe, potassium ferrocyanide. Potassium ferrocyanide. Here, iron is surrounded by 6 same ligands. Nickel tetracarbonyl. Nickel is surrounded by 4 same ligands. So all these are the examples for homoleptic complexes. If the central metal atom or ion is surrounded by same ligands, then the complexes are called as homoleptic complexes. So this completes part C, students. Okay. So we will come back with part D in the next video. Thank you so much.